Hello, hello. Thank you all so much for watching today. Today is a beautiful day, and we are going to talk about a very, very important topic because it's May and it's Mental Health Awareness Month. I am Leslie Jordan, and today I will be moderating a panel of three beautiful women who have come today with their professional as well as personal experiences in regards to this topic. And basically, are you enough? This is what we're going to make sure that before you see the rest of this discussion, you will know that you are more than enough. This year, I do have the pleasure of being a part of the American Heart Association Go Real Women Class of Survivors 2023. You can find more about my survival story on gorealforwomen.org. But today, before we jump into the topic, I do want to introduce the beautiful women who have joined the call today, as I'm so honored to have this discussion with them today. We have Miss Arlene Govan, we have Michelle Isom, and we have Erica Pickford. And all three of them will be introducing themselves today, so you can find out a little bit more about them and their background. Little quick disclosure, this video is not sponsored by the American Heart Association or any of its affiliates, and this is not a substitute for medical or mental health advice or service. So make sure that you get a licensed medical professional or see a licensed therapist. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The title, You Are Enough. Managing your own validation, self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-worth. But first, let's go ahead and hear a little bit more from our panelists. Ms. Arlene, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Arlene Blake Govan. I am a mental health counselor in the state of North Carolina. I have dual licensures for mental health and substance abuse. I am I'm a mobile crisis clinical manager. I love what I do. I love helping people. I love motivating women and children and men. And it's just my passion. And thank you, Leslie, for allowing me to partake in this panel today.
You're very welcome. So glad to have you. Thank you for being here. And next, we would like to hear from Miss Erica.
Hello, my name is Erica Pickford. I am a mobile crisis clinician in the state of North Carolina. I am also a licensed clinical mental health counselor associate, in the state of North Carolina. I have always had a passion for helping relationships and human services. So that's been the bulk of my career, and I count it an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to participate in this discussion today because mental health awareness is something that's very near and dear to my heart.
It's an honor to have you today, and we're so glad that you are speaking with us today. And next, we're going to hear from Miss Michelle.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Michelle Isom. I am a life purpose coach and an event organizer. So I am very happy to be here today. I'm very happy to be able to sit here with three wonderful women and share our experiences, professionally and personally, regarding, what our worth is or what a woman's worth is. And thank you very much, Leslie, for having me here.
Well, thank you so, so much. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you're watching, get ready for some gems. Take out a pen, get a notebook, type it in if you want to text it, because we are about to get some very, very, very valuable and insightful advice that's practical and that we can start using today, just in case we don't know if we're more than enough. Because again, we're going to learn today that yes, we are more than enough. So let's go ahead and jump right in. And of course, this is a round robin discussion. At any time, if you ladies want to just go ahead and give some insights and jump in, feel free. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first question that I will have as many is we need to go ahead and define what these terms are. We have a long topic. You are enough, managing your own validation, self-confidence, your self-esteem, and your self-worth. That is a lot. So let's go ahead and how would you all define self-worth, self-esteem, and confidence?
To not be too wordy, I would define self-worth and self-esteem as the way that you view and appraise yourself, the way that you experience your being as it, not only relates to self, but as it relates to others, the way that you show up in relationships and your perception of that person. As far as confidence, I would just say a belief in oneself. So if we were to, I guess, put those things together, it is the way that you believe in yourself, or the way that you believe in the person that you see.
Love that. Anyone else want to join in and help define those terms as well? And again, we're looking at defining self-worth, self-esteem, and confidence.
I had opportunity. I was doing some research just to see what the different perspectives were on self-esteem, self-worth, and self-confidence. And one of the things I found out was that self-esteem is more about the the belief of how you feel about yourself or your personality, the character. Self-confidence relates more with your skill or your experience in something. So what I took from that was the more value I have in myself, the more confident I show up. How I appear to myself or to others. So I would say for example, if we're referencing a skill. So let's say my as a life coach, the more I do it, the more clients I have, the more I study, the more I interact in the skill that I have, the better I get, the more self-confident I am. And that also helps with my self-esteem. So I would define that and share that with everyone.
That's beautiful. And Miss Arlene, you have anything you want to add or define those terms?
Well, I think these beautiful sisters here have really brought forth a lot of information. Only thing that I would say when I think about self-esteem, self-worth, and self-confidence is as women, we have to stop having the mentality that we are super women. Okay. And we also have to have the mentality that to give ourselves grace. We have to have the mentality to know who we are, what we are, and how to show up. So many times we're showing up with the imposter syndrome because we're trying to be everything when we're not even know who we are. So when we first start talking about self-esteem, like Erica said and Michelle said, is we need to ask ourselves, who am I? Because once we can ask that question, then the who, what, and why will be answered.
You all have shared a plethora of information. I think it's safe to say that mic drop moment that it's important for us to kind of know who we are and define that for ourselves. Like, yes, self-esteem is kind of like external stimulus and how the world affects how you view yourself. And then self-worth is more so internal. Like, how do you personally view yourself? And confidence in itself is that just that you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that what you have is worth something, it is value. So moving into our next question that I would have is, how would you all define value? And what is, well, not necessarily value, how would you define validation? And how does, and it's kind of a two-part question, and how does validation relate? Like, what is the relationship between the self-worth, the self-esteem, and confidence? And this is for anyone or all of you all to answer. And I hope everyone will answer.
I think when it comes to validation, it's who are you seeking the validation from? Why are you seeking the validation? The validation to me is more external. When you're looking outside of yourself for someone to approve you or what it is that you're doing. And if you're in your purpose and you're doing what you're doing, then you don't need to have any external validation. I think there's a difference between validation and showing or sharing what you're doing. For example, if I have a friend and I'm doing something, and I am excited about what I'm doing and I'm sharing it because I'm excited and I know this person gets excited for me or with me because of the endeavor. But when you're looking for validation, that comes from a lack of self-esteem, a lack of um, knowledge of who you are, a lack of self-confidence when you're looking for validation.
I think that's an amazing answer. Just looking within yourself. I think that's important to define that for yourself. Anyone else want to kind of like jump in on looking at how we define validation and what the relationship is as far as validation when we're looking at self-worth, self-esteem, and confidence?
When I think of validation, it is about, because I wrote down some things when I started thinking about it, but it's about being authentic and it is about being intentional. So when we talk about validation should always start by knowing ourselves. Because when we place our worth in someone else's hand, then we're always going to be subjected by their opinions and what they say about us. But if we show up to the table knowing who we are, then that person can never ever pull that rug from underneath us. So then another thing, we got to listen to our inner critic and our inner voices, because sometimes those are the roadblocks along with the other people externally. So we should not seek validation from anyone. Validation first start with knowing ourselves. And once we can do that, then everything else will fall into place. The self-esteem, the self-confidence, the self-value. Those things are in a marriage with validation.
It sounds like if you're able to validate yourself, then you're able to have the self-worth, the self-esteem, and the confidence that you need to know that you're more than enough. Did you have anything you want to add, Miss Erica?
Let me begin by saying I definitely appreciate the perspective of Michelle and Arlene and you, Leslie, so far as it relates to validation. If I were to sum validation up in a word, it would probably be affirmation. Um, uh, so validation would be the act of feeling affirmed or being affirmed by something or someone, because it doesn't have to be a person. Sometimes you can have an affirming experience that kind of informs your self-esteem and your confidence. Let's say, for instance, I enjoy baking from scratch, right? So my confidence in my baking skills, based on the reactions that I've gotten in the past and based on the way that I enjoy the things that I bake, it's pretty solid. Like, I see myself as a good baker and I believe in my skills as a baker. Now, if I were to bake a lemon pound cake and leave it out on the table, walk away from it and come back in a day and there's nothing but crumbs there, that was a validating experience because it basically affirmed my belief in my ability to be a good baker. So just as the other ladies pointed out, they go hand in hand in the sense that when you have good self-esteem, when you have good self-worth, when you have a high level of confidence, in terms of validation, a little bit goes a long way. You don't need somebody else to constantly tell you what you already know to be true. But on the downside of that, if you're lacking in insight, if you're lacking in self-worth, if you have low self-esteem and you're lacking in confidence, then you're going to need that constant affirmation from others and from your experiences. You're going to need your sense of self to be reinforced externally almost all the time. So understanding how those things work in concert is really important to gaining more insight about who we are as people.
I absolutely love all of your answers. I love how you basically have shown us so far that validation in itself does have a relationship with self-worth, self-esteem, and confidence. And in any of those areas are low, you're going to be seeking validation from other person, and those person or people, family, friends, whomever you want to put in that person's space may not necessarily always have the best interest in mind. So I think that's why it's so important that we know that we're worthy enough and that we can validate ourselves, so we're not just jumping on anything and everything and find ourselves in situations that do not serve us or serve our purpose or who we really are meant to be. If there's anything else you want to share before we move on to my next question, I'd be more than glad to open that up.
I just want to tell Erica, I love that painting that you have behind you.
Thank
Oh,
you. It's
it is
actually a
beautiful. I
tapestry.
wasn't gonna say anything, but it's gorgeous. I absolutely.
Oh, it's a tapestry?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
tapestry. I found it on Amazon because if you ever look at the way that my entire office is decorated, it's basically an ode to Black girl magic.
Oh, I love that Black girl magic.
Yeah. So
And I would just like to say, when she talks about her baking and her lemon pound cake, I'm so guilty of, she'll bring me a small piece and then I'll say, well, do you have any more at home? And then my husband, I'll bring it home and he will eat the rest of it. So
Yeah, I was thinking about that when she was talking about it. I said, that must be some good pound cake. I kind of want to
yeah,
take a piece myself.
she's a good
well,
baker. That's that validation, that confidence in your self-esteem that you have as a baker.
right.
And just a little affirmation. That's all you need. Like, it's just like the mustard seed of faith. You just need a little mustard seed. That's all you need. You don't need a lot. Just a little.
Right. It's like the icing on the top of that nice little pound cake.
So since we have already kind of defined these terms and we have kind of shown what the relationship is between these terms and validation, we definitely want to look in deeper and kind of looking at self-worth, self-esteem, and confidence. And we kind of touched on this already, but we want to kind of look at what is the relationship, if you will, or how does it relate to a feeling? A person may have a feeling or they may have a need to seek external or internal validation. So, and I know we already kind of touched on if these areas are kind of low, that may affect how you are feeling or if you have a need. But we just kind of want to look at what exactly may create this need or this feeling if we don't necessarily have the self-worth we need, the self-esteem, or even the confidence.
I don't mind going first for this one. I think that the way that we seek validation is usually a significant indicator of how healthy we are in terms of our sense of self-worth and confidence and self-esteem. And by that, I mean, when you are a person who, again, is affirmed in who you are, you're confident, your self-esteem is healthy, not too high, but definitely not low, then you experience validation as something that is complimentary. It's like sprinkles on top. You didn't need it, but you definitely enjoy the experience of having it. So on the flip side of it being complimentary in a healthy sense, if you are experiencing low self-esteem or you are lacking in a sense of self-worth, then that complimentary validation then becomes compulsory. I have to have it. I need that to feel okay, to feel secure in who I am. And honestly, that is a great indication that there is some self-work left to do. There is something that you need to do to foster a more healthy relationship with self so that you can reap more positive benefits from internal validation instead of having to seek it externally.
That's beautiful. Your metaphors of food is just incredible, but they are so on point. Like, it's just a sprinkle. Like, it's always beautiful if you get a compliment. It's beautiful if you get the validation, but it's not needed because we already know that we are more than enough. Jill or Arlene, did you want to go ahead and just add some of your valuable knowledge to this question?
think when we talk about validation, we have to address us or people not being an investor of self. We're so consumed that we're searching for someone to pick us up. But if you're really an investor in yourself, you won't need those pickups. You know, you won't have to continue to be that people pleaser. You won't have to continue to show up as a plastic person. You won't have to be always wanting or expecting someone to build you up or invite you to the table, so to speak. Because if you show up as if you're invested in yourself, then your stride will be with confidence. You won't be concerned with the flaws or the imperfections of yourself because, as we know, every human have them. It's how we identify them, how we try to work through them. And when we start doing the work on ourselves, unpacking, dealing with the unfinished business, then our stride will change from being fearful to being confident. But it's all start with the investment in self when we talk about validation.
I think that's such a powerful point. Invest in self. In other words, if you know that you're already lacking in some of the self esteem, self worth, self confidence, or you're externally seeking validation, then it might be time to start looking inwardly and see or define that. Like you mentioned previously, from all of you, we need to know who we are. Like that's very important.
Yeah, and I always say, let's do a station identification moment because when we can stop and do that moment to assess ourselves, and I like to, when we talk about assessing ourselves, I like to do it from a SWOT analysis, our strength, our weakness, our opportunities, and our threats. So when we can put things in that bucket, then we can know those are the areas that we need to work on. But I think so many people are afraid to really pull back those layers or really look at themselves in the mirror because they don't want to deal with it. In order for us to be strong women, may we be women of color or just women in general, however what adjective we use to describe ourselves, we have to understand we have to do the work because our agenda is not to be underneath the glass ceiling, it is to break and shatter it. And the only way we can do that is to show up confident.
Okay, that was one too many, Jim. I almost didn't get them all down. That luckily we're recording, so we can
Yeah,
rewind
she
this
was
if needed.
dropping them.
Beautiful. Michelle, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so for me, as whenever you use the word need comes from a place of lack. It comes from a place of you don't have it, so you are searching for it. So when we talk about the need for validation, let's get to the source of where this is coming from. Why do you feel the need for validation? Where does this go back to? And some of us, we don't want to deal with the childhood issues. We don't want to deal with the teenage issues. We don't want to deal with whatever trauma, or it doesn't even have to be trauma. It could just be a breakup. Whatever this is, we have to dive into whatever the cause of this feeling of need or this feeling of lack. I deal a lot with what I call identity crisis, and I think that a lot of people, when we talk about the need, because their definition of who they are is based on someone else's definition, and so when you're showing up and you're showing up based on someone else, this is not you. So when you get to understand you and you do that self-analysis that Arlene was just speaking about, then you will find that you don't need the validation. You already have everything that you need. You come with it. We come with it. Sometimes we just forget it, or depending on our environment, we wasn't exposed to it. So we have to do that self-evaluation.
When we start talking about validation, we really have to go back to our childhood, like Michelle said, because that validation starts from when we're 3 or 4 years old. when your parents will tell you, in order for you to do this, you have to make good grades. So we're constantly needing that affirmation, that reconfirmation that we're good enough. So, like Michelle said, we have to address some of the childhood issues that has never been unpacked. For example, I'm Caribbean, and Caribbean families have a tendency of always saying how fat you are or something like that. You internalize that. So you're looking at these magazines, looking to see how you should look, not realizing that our parents or a family member may have said something to you about your weight. So you're constantly trying to seek validation. You're constantly going to the gym 5 days a week, working out 2 times a week, because you want to have that body where no one can tell you that you're fat. But that's their perception, not yours. Because to me, you may be healthy, to them, you may be fat. It's all in the narrative, and it's all in a person, what they see themselves as. So that's all I wanted to piggyback
Oh,
on.
that's brilliant. So what I'm hearing saying, we have to stop telling ourselves these stories in our heads that are not true and that are based on, again, someone else's views, but it's not necessarily who we truly are. So reaching all the way back to the beginning, that affirmation piece, if you don't believe you are who you are, then we have to say those affirmations, and we have to create those stories and look in the mirror, do the work, and make sure that we know this is who we are, believe who we are, and just show up every day, and love and know that we are more than enough. Oh my God, this is incredible. If you're still watching, take notes, like I said before. Again, remember, you are enough, but we have to do the work. We have to peel back those layers. We have to look at the things that we've probably been hiding from, or we didn't even know that we were hiding from, so that we can start having that validation within ourselves and know, more importantly, that we are enough. So this brings me next to my next question. So 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you can go ahead, because again, we want real-time practical advice that we can start using today if we feel like we're lacking in some of these areas, like self-worth, self-esteem, self confidence as well. And 1 2 3 things. This is for everyone, anyone that wants to jump in. What can women do to help build their self-confidence, their self-esteem, and their self-worth, to know that we are more than enough?
I would like to provide the most obvious answer here. Seek therapy, find a clinical home, and you don't have to be in crisis just to need someone to talk to. I think I mentioned this to you before, Leslie, in a prior conversation, that oftentimes families are as sick as their darkest secrets. So unpacking the why behind your sense of self, behind your sense of self-worth, behind your abundance of confidence or lack thereof, understanding how early life experiences or life experiences in general feed into who and how we are. And I think culturally, a lot of times, we do tend to allow others to inform those experiences. One thing that I would say from my own personal experience growing up as a little Southern Baptist girl, we often hear the term love the sinner, hate the sin. And while that sounds like sound advice, a lot of times we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, where is our energy most focused? On loving the sinner or hating the sin? Because oftentimes, because people put more energy into hating our sins, we internalize that to a degree, and we develop a sense of self-hatred. And so we invalidate ourselves and all of the things that we know to be true about ourselves. So if we can get into relationship with an effective and competent clinician who can sit with us and meet us where we are in an effort to unpack some of that and develop the skill set and the mental and emotional fortitude to challenge the lies that you've been fed through culture, through media, through traumatic experiences, then we can get to a better sense of understanding who we are and knowing that we are enough and being able to walk in that truth.
I love walking in that truth. It just sounds like we definitely have to dive in deeper and find out where our focus is if we don't feel like we're enough to validate ourselves. Like, what are we giving that time and energy to? That is beautiful. Anyone else want to kind of just add where we already are as far as like 1 or 2, 3 things that women can do, or just add more to what Erica was saying?
When we talk about knowing ourselves, I think we need to examine 4 things. We need to examine the needs, the fears, the feelings, and the distraction. Because knowing ourselves, then if we can understand the need, the fear, the feelings, and the distraction, then we can look in the mirror, because here's my mirror, and ask, who am I? How well do I know myself? And the third thing, what does it mean to be myself? So when we start exploring the needs, what are my needs? How do I get my needs met? What are my fears? What are my feelings? Because we need to understand every emotion. So if we understand that emotion, if we are angry, what are we really angry about? What is the emotion? What is the emotion behind anger? It is fear. So what am I really fearful of? What are my distractions? So once I can identify all those things, then I can become whole, because my objective is to be my authentic and ideal self. That's my objective. And only way that I can get there is to know the needs, the fears, the feeling, distraction, and look in the mirror and say, who am I? And when we can answer those things as women, then we can walk out living a life unapologetically, organically, and authentically.
Okay, Miss Arlene over there.
That's a dream. It's absolutely a dream to show up each and every time as your authentic self. That is amazing. Michelle, you have anything you want to go ahead and add, like something that women can do, 1 or 2, 3 things, and just involving how to help build their self-confidence, self-worth, self-esteem?
A few things I would like to add on to what Erica said. Therapy is important. Having because you have to get to the source, and the source of whatever that's holding you back from being who you truly are. So therapy is definitely one. I do recommend we can start as women, be mindful of the words and the conversation that we have with ourselves, the words that we use when we reference ourselves. When you say something about yourself, what type of words are you using? So for me, something that I do, I really try to be mindful every day, is to tell myself I love you. I look in the mirror, or if I'm not, I'll wake up in the morning and I say, I love you, Michelle. You are so beautiful. And the more I say these things to myself, the more it makes me feel good. The more it gives me self-confidence. I cannot say I love you, Michelle, without putting a smile on my face. To say I love you and not have any type of feeling, it doesn't bring out any type of feeling. So I cannot say I love you and not feel good about myself. I also think by saying these things to yourself, you no longer need for anyone else. How often do we tell someone else that we love them, but we don't say it to ourselves? So we figure with ourselves, I can show you by doing the things for you. I buy you something. I might take you out to eat. But do we ever just say, I love you? So it's just the words that we use when we're speaking of ourselves. Even when we make mistakes, you might say, oh, stupid. Stop saying that. Don't call yourself stupid. You're not stupid. What you may have done may not have been the best thing, but you're not stupid. So it's just being mindful of how the words in which we use when we talk to ourselves. Um, a few other things. Read books. Read. Read books, listen to things that give you a positive feeling, that allows that inner self to feel childlike again. Read things that um reverberate the person that you want to be. So read books, listen. It could be reading or the audiobooks, or I'm quick to go on YouTube. I'm quick to go on YouTube, or even my on Instagram when I'm listening to someone. It could, Iyanla Van Zant, somebody that's saying something positive about women, or even just something, because she's good to check you. So when she says something, it could be something that I may have experienced that I have to go internalize myself. So, listen to people, read books that's going to give you a positive affirmation. And lastly, be mindful of the company that you keep. The company that you keep is very important. I surround myself only with people that are encouraging to me, but also people that check me. I don't like yes people, because I'm looking to grow. So if you're looking to empower yourself, and if you're looking to be authentic, then you have to surround yourself with people that's going to challenge you to take yourself up another notch. So those are my three recommendations to do in order to to get to that place where you know that you are enough.
I I really enjoyed your response, Michelle, because you were tap dancing on some of my thoughts. Like just man, just unbelievable. Like, and when I say tap dancing, I mean like Savion Glover, Sammy Davis Jr., Gregory Hines type tap dancing. So it was a huge compliment, because I realized I only gave one thing, go to therapy. But the other two things that I was thinking was find your community or your village.
Mhm.
Because I mean, as a tribalist or a self-described tribalist, I believe that it does not only take a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to uplift an individual.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
as human beings, we are pack animals. Social isolation over extended periods of time is detrimental to our socio-emotional development. So we need meaningful connection. We need to be intentional and deliberate about the people that we allow into our space, that we share experiences, thoughts, emotions, and energy with. So that the same way we pour into those relationships, those people and those relationships pour back into us. So we're all fully fed. We don't have any leeches or anybody, being predatory or anything like that. We are all working together to help us help each other. And the other thing that I was thinking was being willing to not only speak kindly to yourself, but forgive yourself.
Oh, yes.
Um, and I realized that in my development, I found that because I was so critical of self, uh, at an earlier age, I found it easier to forgive other people than it was to forgive myself. But I had one of those mirror moments where I just stood there in front of it until I said, I forgive you. I mean, and I kept saying, I forgive you, until I believed myself. Because I had no idea until I did that exercise that that was something I had been waiting to hear, not from someone else, but from me. So the
Mm,
gift of forgiveness that I'm willing to offer so freely to other people, I need to give that gift just as freely, if not even more so, to myself. So I appreciate you for how you sparked that train of thought for me, Michelle.
yes. I mean, even when you talk about forgiveness of self, so often because we're always looking outside of ourselves. Most times, we're looking outside of ourselves. There we go with that validation, that we're quick to do something for someone else, but not give ourselves that same feeling, that same love. So yes, that forgiveness, I had to learn that. I had to learn how to forgive myself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um,
Mm.
and just to piggyback on what they said, every time that forgiveness was something really big, and every time when I talk about forgiveness, I always say it's like if you live in a body that's unforgiving, it's like slowly drinking poison, waiting to die. That's how it is, because you're so stuck and you're stagnant and you're in bondage. And one
Mm,
thing we have to realize is that when we start talking about loving ourselves, understanding ourselves, that comes within. External is good, but if it's not within yourself, all the fancy clothes, all the makeup, all the nice cars and the next nice homes, you still are not going to be happy. We see that every day with tons of people in today's world. So knowing ourselves and forgiveness and a lot of things that my two beautiful sisters tapped on is all what we need. That is the ingredients. We just have to learn how to make that a moist cake, so to speak, with the ingredients that they gave us.
Thank you all so much for just pinpointing on a few ways outside of therapy and surrounding ourselves with people, not necessarily yes people, but people are going to help us grow and help us be our best selves, and learning how to look within ourselves. But the foundation that it seems like is to start with is forgiveness. We have to forgive ourselves. As women, I find that we're always giving grace to others, giving forgiveness for others, but we're not always looking in the mirror and forgiving ourselves, giving ourselves grace to say that it's okay that if we're not exactly where we need to be, or we're not doing exactly what we need to do, but if we're taking those little steps every single day to get towards where we want to be, or where we're hoping that we should be, that that's more than enough. And remember, we are more than enough. So that is beautiful. And what we're going to do is just step in. You kind of already answered my next question, but we're going to kind of ad lib and like kind of combine it a little bit just for the sake of time, because I don't want to miss out on anything that we have already learned and what we're going to share going forward. How can women validate themselves? And this is just one example, whether it's personally or professionally. And I know we've kind of already touched on that, but if you want to kind of add to that, please do. And then the follow up with that is what type of support, and we have touched on that, what type of support can help women validate themselves to know that they are enough? One way that I've learned to validate myself is to give myself grace, to know that when I show up, especially dealing with my health and becoming a stroke survivor, there are a lot of things that I have the ability, but I don't always have the capability to do. And I've learned that if I fall short, or it takes me more time to do things than what I used to do, that I have to remember to give myself grace. And that helps me validate where I'm at in life, and knowing that just for me showing up is more than half the battle, because I could have chose to giving up, but I chose not to give up. I chose to show up and continue to walk in my purpose, be a living testimony, so I can encourage others that may be going through similar experiences or maybe a different experience in life, so that they can continue to show up, continue to have their own validation, and continue to know that they're more than enough. Nothing that ever happened to you in life is enough to take away the fact that you are more than enough.
So, in terms of ways that women can validate themselves, circling back to the point that Michelle made, speaking to yourself lovingly. I have this little mantra where I say, share love, show love, be love, no love. So if I govern my intentions with love in front of everything that I do, that's not only going to have a positive impact on my interactions with other people, it's also going to have a positive impact on the way that I treat myself, the way that I take care of myself, the way that I acknowledge myself, the way that I validate myself from one day to the next. So I think that just putting positivity or love in front of whatever it is that you do, it is, it's almost like the positivity is infectious. um and I'm a firm believer that if you can't change your situation, change your mind about your situation. So if you hate where you are in your life, or you hate the way that you feel about yourself, if you change your mind about things and say that, you know what, regardless of the fact that I hate this situation, I choose love, or I choose to operate out of love instead. I don't want to feed that hate. I'm going to let that die. I'm going to operate and serve from a place of love so that I can get the reward from this situation, no matter how rigorous the journey to get there might be. Also, yes, podcasts, books, documentaries, and things like that from credible sources. That's no knock to Steve Harvey or other individuals who I'm sure have a wealth of advice to share to the masses, but I think getting evidence-based information about mental health, about self-care, about self-awareness or mindfulness and things like that is essential to making sure that you take the most appropriate steps to learn how to validate yourself, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much for sharing that. What about you, Miss Arlene?
As usual, Erica dropped a lot of jewels, but I think one thing when we talk about validating self is a statement that I like to say sometimes to clients, that you cannot have a positive outcome with a negative mindset. So if we want something positive to happen, as far as validation, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, we have to change our mindset. We have to change that language that we speak to ourselves. You know, we call it stinking thinking sometime in therapy. And we have to get rid of that stinking thinking and, you know, not departmentalize it, just put it in file 11, which means that you're not going to go back to it. What we say to ourselves, that's how we are to motivate, inspire, and cultivate change within us. We can't do it with a negative mind, because every time we do it with a negative mind, we are going to be our own worst critics, and then we're going to engage in what other people think of us. I think Michelle and Erica said another thing is, don't hang around people that's going to choke you. Hang around people that's going to teach you how to fly. And remember your worth. You can show up as if you are an article on a sale rack, or you can show up as someone that's full price. That's how a person is going to treat you. So if you show up always as a full price individual, then no one can try to negotiate your worth.
Say it again.
I need to hear that one more time. I said,
Say it again.
You show
And
up.
with that, the price just went up.
Uh-huh.
You show up as a full price person. No one can negotiate your worth.
that says it all.
I love that.
We give
love
to
that.
people, you know, Michelle and I talk a lot, Erica and I talk a lot. And one thing that I always say to Erica or to Michelle, I'm here not as a dream killer. I'm here to fix your crown. In order for me to fix someone else's crown, I see that potential. I see their worth. So I'm not going to allow their crown to be crooked. And that's how we're supposed to operate as women and as sisters. And sometimes I think that we forget that.
Mm-hmm.
We got to go back to that. Celebrate each other, motivate each other. That's what we do.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Michelle, did you have anything you want to add as far as, like, you know, how you show up in the world and validate yourself, or how women can do it, and ways that women can support themselves if they need help, knowing that they're more than enough?
Both Eric and Arlene dropped some gems here. I'm sitting here writing it down as they're speaking. One of the things that I found that causes stress is we're always focused on the outcome and not the journey. We're always in the future and not right now. So what I learned to do is a few things that I learned to do. One of the first things, I'm gonna take you back a little bit. When my children were young and I felt myself, you know, in a certain place, one of the things that I learned to do was find something to smile about. Find something to smile about. And if anybody knows my youngest son, he's always been this just positive kid, always smiling, always happy. And so when he was younger, whenever I felt that I was veering off, something was bothering me, I would focus on his smile. And it would make me smile. It made me feel better. So I created a habit out of that to where now I don't need that to do it. I just shift right into it. I don't run away from whatever the situation is, but I'm about the solution. So if I can't find a solution right now, I'm going to direct my attention towards something that I can find a solution to, and then come back later to it. So, um, when you're feeling a certain way about yourself, again, going back to why you're feeling that way, that's crucial in order to move forward. In order to have that understanding of why you're thinking the way you are, you got to go back to where the source of that is coming from. But in these times where you're having these conflicts, where you're having doubts about who you are, this is something that you might be able to do. Find something that makes you feel good about yourself. Let me see what else I have here. Stay in the moment. And again, just find the people that encourage you, that empower you. I'm gonna just speak from myself. I think once you find your purpose, and I talk about this with Arlene, once you find your purpose, there's a confidence that you have that no one can shake.
Yes.
No one can shake. Because you know that your purpose is God driven, soul driven, whatever your walk of life might be, it is a spirit that comes through you that no one can take you off that path. No matter what happens, you are committed. Because if I give up on that purpose, I'm giving up on myself. So I truly believe that if to that validation is finding your purpose. Find that reason that makes you want to get up in the morning. Find that drive that makes you feel good and be happy just because. Not because you have something, not because you have money, not because you have a car, not because a person in your life, just because. Because when you don't have all those things anymore, you still have you and you still have that purpose. So that is my recommendation, my suggestion on what someone can do to help validate methods or things that they can use to apply to validate themselves.
Michelle, you got Anita Baker playing in my head right now. Like I wanna go and
Which
stand in
song
front of
are
a
you
mirror.
thinking of? Anita Baker? Which one?
Yes, I want to go and stand in front of a mirror and sing "Just Because." I love you just because I do.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing. Well, Erica, Michelle, Arlene, you all have dropped so many gems. I have learned so much. And I am so glad that we could all come together and basically give women and ourselves a ways to find the support that we need, learn to know whether or not we have a healthy sense of self-worth, self-validation, self-confidence, and just knowing that we can validate ourselves. We don't have to have these external factors. We can have it within ourselves. We learn about forgiveness and how so important it is to forgive ourselves, to have grace. Like we really just, I feel like we cracked the code for the surface. So if you haven't already figured out that you already have everything you need to know that you're more than enough, there are so many gems that we learned today to find out ways and support and things that we can do as women or ourselves to find out that we can validate ourselves and we are more than enough. And before we go ahead and quickly close out, if there's anyone watching and they may want professional clinical therapy, or they may be interested in finding out how they can get a little bit more help at the podcast, or if their own support groups aren't enough for them right now.
So for me, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning, I am a life purpose coach and an event organizer. And if you are interested in any of the courses that I have, you can go to www.awareminds.com, and that is Aware Minds, AWARE MINDZ as in zebra.com. And it's the same for all my social media. So at Facebook, it is Aware Minds, as well as IG, it is at Aware Minds.
Thank you. Arlene or Erica, did you have anything you wanted to add in case someone maybe wanted to reach out to you, or maybe some information that they can find support or more needed support, someone needs it?
They could basically reach out to me from AS Authentic Self LLC. My phone number and my social media handle is all of AS Authentic Self. I do individual counseling and also substance abuse, also crisis. So those are my handles, but it's something that I really want to say, and I have written it down. So I'm going to read it real quick when we talk about, how to be ourselves, being authentic. It requires us to take inventory and stop. And the way how I look at that is that no one opened a store with empty shelves, right? Or outdated merchandise. Instead, they assess their plan and they prepare. So today, what I would tell the people who are listening, take inventory of yourself. Are you depleted or need to be restocked? Or are you fully equipped to handle anything that comes your way? Determine how you are going to operate. Are you going to be closed, under construction, or ready to do business? So that's how we need to look at ourselves when we talk about being authentic, when we talk about self-esteem and confidence. Are you closed, under construction, or ready to do business? Because if you don't know how to show up, you're going to show up either closed, under construction, or ready to do business.
Thank you for sharing that and your information. I'm sure you have plenty of persons contacting you, if nothing else, for more questions. Erica, did you have anything that you wanted to add as far as
Yes,
how to contact you or information to get more support?
for sure. While I do not yet have my website all the way put together as I would like to, it is coming. And it is under the name of Village 511 Mental Health Services. But until that time, I can always be reached at my Gmail account, which is erica.pigford at gmail.com. Now, the Pigford is Pigford, pig and Ford together. So erica.pigford at gmail.com. And if there are any psychoeducational needs for speaking engagements, consultation, I am always available unless I am out in the community doing crisis work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't think I can say thank you enough. This has been so wonderful, so informative, so educational. If you do not know by now that you are more than enough, reach out to these beautiful women, ask them questions, ask them information. If you want to reach out to me, you are more than welcome. You can go to goredforwomen.org, find out more information about beautiful heart stories. In my case, I am a stroke survivor, and you can find out more about my story. We want to share information. The basis of any trauma is always going to start with mental health. And one thing that we have discussed today is just being able to internalize and internally validate yourself so you know that you are more than enough. We already here, all shown up with more than enough because we are more than enough. So thank you, ladies, again for being here. Thank you
Thank
all
you.
for staying to the
Thank
end. If
you.
you're still watching, and if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. I'll make sure that these ladies do get your questions if you have any, or if you have any for me. Go ahead, spread the word, share this discussion. It's a much needed discussion for women because we need to know that we are more than enough. So thank you all so much for being here and hope to see you soon.